So the purpose of the Odyssey plans, this is an expansive exercise, right? And we know that the more diverse ideas that you have, the more creativity you're going to have. And you can see now that we're a couple of days past the Odyssey plans, how these ideas are going to start coming together as you research your different, as you research your plans, right? And you go and you have these conversations. So if you have plans that are very similar, you're losing the opportunity to really think big and to have really diverse ideas. So we recognize that, right? So in the one that you do, we're kind of giving you a nod to, okay, this is what I think I'm going to do. I'm all in. We're not taking that away, which doesn't always happen in design thinking. So we're going to let you have that. And then we provide some prompts, and the book provides some prompts to help you think expansively and to do something a little bit different. So in this case, if you want to try a different minor or major, that's fine, right? So it's going to be different, but maybe somewhere in the ballpark, right? If all the CEOs got together and decided that consultants would no longer be a profession, what would you do? That was the example they used in the book. And so really to kick it up and to make sure that there is a good deal of diversity, we're going to add just something crazy. Like imagine if money and prestige did not matter, right? So really there's no reason in that point to be thinking about, I have to make sure that I'm going to be able to provide for my family. Doesn't matter, right? You're going to have, like, it's kind of implied that you have that, because as soon as you say that, that's a constraint. It's not a bad constraint. I mean, it's not an awful thing that you have that concern, but what I'm saying is that for the thought process, the idea is to come up with as many diverse ideas as you can. So that's the one thing. And I gave some feedback on a number of places where I might ask you to do things that actually reflect that diversity and pull them apart. The other place that you can do that is your questions, right? And we started to get at this on Tuesday with some of the constraints that I put on you, right? So everybody said, will I like this major? Will I like this job? Well, that's fine. And that is an unknown, but please know that I'm looking for a little bit more than asking that question 3 times. If you're going to look at 3 different things, like, will I like my major? Will I like my major? Will I like this job? Will I like this job? What kinds of questions, what real unknowns do you have? And this requires some thought, right? We're putting that thought into these questions now by making them different. And to be quite honest, I'm making a bigger issue of this than I have in the past, because I'm starting to recognize over a number of times doing this, that that's something we need to address. We need to make sure that the questions are different. And I would say those 2 pieces would take care of the third thing. And that is, if you're going through each of your categories, each of your time frames, and all 3 of them in the beginning are the same, and all 3 of them in the second are the same, and all 3 of them in the third are the same, and it's only to the 4th or 5th where you actually do this other major or do a different internship, right? What are the different pathways that you would take to explore these different things? And they're not all the same. Again, we are looking for divergent, different ideas to have a high level of creativity. This is not a contract into what you're going to do once you get out of Loyola. This is a contract to explore all of the options that might be possible that are somewhat seated in creating a happy, joyful life. Okay, so that's just a summary there, and I hope we can continue to kind of get at those things and what we're going to do today. So if you do the things if you came prepared today and you do the things that I asked you to do, you could almost, and you're happy with them, take into a little bit of feedback, you can almost record both of these, fill both of these things out, and be done by dinner time with your assignments, right? So the idea here is that we're slowing down a little bit. And quite honestly, I told you that I would prefer to create most of this stuff in class. So that's what we're going to try to do Tuesday and today. So for today, we're going to start with a popcorn, and it's going to be an expansive thinking question regarding your life design conversations. And for this, I'm going to need your cameras on because there's going to be an interaction. So I'm going to ask you to do that. And then there's going to be a couple of workshops. One is a role play of the life design introduction you've put together. probably not likely that you're going to have these conversations in person in a normal time. They might be, especially if you're able to engage people that you know through your parents or you know through your own connections or teachers at home. So you're going to be doing them on Zoom. So we're going to be doing them today on Zoom. You're going to give your life introduction, keeping in mind too, this isn't the first time you've done that. Everything you've done, I've asked you to do an introduction of yourself, your values, where they came from. And one of the reasons that we're recording them is I want you to get great at doing it in front of your camera. And then second, playing out those questions for two reasons. One, when you actually ask your questions to somebody else, in your mind, you have to start crafting a more coherent, short question, and you start to hear that, wow, that's not very clear, or that's a little bit awkward. But so does somebody else, right? And what's going to be interesting is not only do they hear how the question is crafted, they're going to try to answer it for you. And it's an opportunity, again, one of our checks on and asking a good question last week was, do you get different answers and do you get the answers you would expect? Where did you get hit? Over there in the corner. That's not what we want. Okay, so let's start out today. I want you to think about the biggest questions that you have and who would be the ultimate person to answer them. There are no constraints. It can be a world famous person. It could be somebody that you think is untouchable. It's like, I'm really interested in international aid. I would love to talk to Bill Gates. Put it down. And then I'm going to ask you why you can't talk to him, right? Who might provide that ultimate inspiration or open the most doors for you? And I would like you to tell us who that is by name. And the only constraint that I'm going to give you is that this person has to be somebody that would address the questions that you've started, are almost done putting together for this assignment, right? So what is the question and who would be the ultimate person that you would ask that question of? All right, so we're going to come back together here. Addie, you're top left today for me, so I'm going to start with you if that's okay. Who is your, and I'm just hoping that that's always random, so I apologize if it looks like I'm starting with somebody somebody the same. So, and actually, I do lie. I don't start top left, I start bottom left. And that's usually somebody who doesn't have their camera on. So like Addie just turned her camera on and she shifted. I'm still going to start with you though, Addie, to go. All right, so lead us off. What's your question and who's your ultimate answerer?
So sorry, I just have to.
No, it's okay.
So my question is graduate school or the FBI Academy a more successful path after undergrad? And I would probably say Dr. Rivers.
Okay, there is no question in my mind, and I'm going to be on a meeting with Dr. Rivers immediately after this day. There's no question in my mind, Addie, that he's going to be able to answer that question for you. And there's no question in my mind that he will. Who else could answer it?
Well, I also had someone I found on Loyola Connect named Jordan Buff.
Okay, what's Jordan Buff do?
He is an attorney and a criminal investigator.
Okay, great. So it's FBI celebrities are hard. You know, even though there's a TV show named The FBI, I would be hard pressed to name any of the actors in it. And they probably wouldn't be able to answer your question. But James Comey could, right? And you start thinking about those people. That's what I'm talking. Who's the reach? Who would be the ultimate authority, unbelievable, that might be able to inspire you with 30 years of work in the FBI? Robert Mueller, right? Or Merrick Garland, right? Somebody that's like that's what I'm getting at. Who is the ultimate person? And I'll be honest, they're pretty busy guys. And there's some, you know, a number of people, but there's a chance if you emailed them, they might say, wow, this would be so much better than trying to prosecute the people that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. I'd love to take 20 minutes and talk to Addie, right? So let's think about who that person is. All right, Addie, who do you pick? Okay. See, that's fun. right? Not that Dr. Rivers isn't fun, but that's fun. Okay, who else? Who do you pick?
I'll pick Isabella.
Hello, Isabella. What's your question and who's your dream answerer?
Oh, okay. My question is, what is the best way to prepare for like a job in law or just like law school in general?
Okay, so who's your Mount Rushmore lawyer expert that you're going to ask?
I would probably talk to Father Brown.
I
Maybe
want
he's really-
somebody
No.
else.
I do not know.
Give me a famous lawyer that's not on TV.
He's not on TV.
Well, no, that's not an actor.
Oh, I was like,
Like James Tubin is on TV, and if you wanted to pick that guy at Harvard, I would say that's fine.
I would
And
probably
he's also
choose-
somebody I would email.
okay, I would probably choose like Juan Martinez. He's a prosecutor in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I watched like some of his cases and I thought like he did a great job. So I feel like he would be like the best person.
If you emailed Juan Martinez and you said, I'm considering a career in law, I've watched a number of your cases, and I think you did an awesome job, would you be willing to talk to me for 20 minutes? It's a coin flip that he might talk to you.
Yeah.
I think you should email him.
Okay.
Over break, come up with an email. And this is a great time to try out the email introduction that you're going to have. Email him. I'm totally serious. People want to help. They don't get many emails like this because people are scared to email them. Introduce yourself and do it. Who do you pick?
I choose Juan. Oh, sorry. I choose Juan.
Juan, who's your dream person?
My dream person is Wendy Bolger, or the resident commissioner for my state. I mean, not my state, for Puerto Rico.
I see how
Jennifer.
you did that. I like how you did that. That was good.
Yeah. So,
Who is it? And what question are they going to ask for you? Answer.
It's Jennifer Gonzalez, and my question is basically the same one as last time, which is, will I be better prepared? I mean, oh my God. I have the old one here. Wait.
Keeping in mind that if you do actually have an opportunity to talk to these people, you know, their experience and how they got, I mean, you respect them and you look up to them for a reason, like how they got to where they are. And then, you know, certainly being able to ask the question that I think Juan's going to ask, that might have to do with a year off or what he's planning and how he's going to get to the law.
Okay, so my question is, how can I create an impact on the Loyola community while in oh my God, this is terrible. I literally, because I had my question from last time, but I can't find it here. So my question ultimately was how I could like, oh my God, how embarrassing. Whether or not I want to be
Well,
like,
only if this was actually Jennifer Gonzalez.
yeah,
For us, we
extremely
know you,
embarrassing.
so it's fine.
No, because like it's the one I wrote on the car last time, but I don't have my notebook. Let me check. It's the one where I asked like if I could like, would I be better prepared to help a community like right after my bachelor's, or would I be better like prepared afterwards, like when I go to law school?
Would you be better prepared to help a community by taking a year off or going straight to law school? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I remember. Okay.
I'm
And
writing it right now.
and she's from Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
and you want to go back and make an impact on Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
I would spin your question and make it more Puerto Rico focused than Loyola focused.
Okay.
Because I can assure you she would be excited to answer that question. Especially from somebody who's a constituent that's interested in coming back.
Okay, so
I want you to
would
pick
I
somebody.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so no, I was gonna restate it, but that's okay. I pick Nick.
And find your questions because we're going to need those for the next step.
So the person I want to do with the person I picked first. Her name's Kendra Lemon, and she's the chief nurse practitioner at General Mass. So I feel like I would have a lot of questions for her, but the one that I'm gonna pick is what classes should I specifically take to prepare me for nursing school? Because I was looking at it already, and there's a lot of biology electives, and like I was looking, one of them is like bioterrorism, where it only covers like biological weapons, and I feel like that would be interesting, but I'm not too sure if that would like really help me for what I'm trying to do.
And we offer that here.
Yes. So that's something I've been struggling with, is like what exactly I should focus on in biology.
The other question that I would make sure I asked her is who else you should talk to, because somebody like that is might be a little bit removed from patient care, and she could give you some great insight. But I would never leave that conversation without finding out who else, because you might have somebody 2 or 3 levels below her that can give you better insight because they're doing it, right? So I'm not by no means, Nick, am I criticizing your reach. I put email, ask the question, right? At Mass General. It's an amazing place. And see what she says. All right.
I'll pick Oliver.
Oliver, what's your question and who's your dream person?
My question is, what kind of courses or experiences can I engage in so I can learn to invest? And my dream person would probably be
Oh, give me one of those great big TV investors that we heard of, Oliver. Who's your person?
probably like Warren Buffett.
Yes. Yes. I would want to ask Stephanie Rule, right? Somebody like that that just seems friendly and yes, Warren Buffett. And it's a long shot. Getting his email would be the long shot, but if you could get him an email, he likes reaching out, talking to young people, giving advice, right? Okay, who do you pick, Oliver?
I'll pick on Alex.
Alex, what's your question? Who's your Hall of Fame answerer?
My question is, how can I guarantee that I could get a job in the CIA?
Okay, who are you gonna ask?
My dream answer would be the director of CIA, which is William Spence.
I think he'd be an outstanding person to ask. Ask me your question again, Alex, or state your question again.
How can I guarantee that I could get a job in the CIA?
Okay, so just small thing there. Nothing will guarantee it, but what I think would be helpful for you is what can I do to make myself the strongest applicant possible for a job in the CIA? Right? Do you see the difference? Because one of those, that's almost a gravity type ask of a question. There is no possible guarantee to that. But what you're really looking for is, how can I be the most competitive person possible to get that job? Right? So just a small shift or reframing in what you're asking there. And to be honest, that reframed that way would lend itself to a number of experiences, courses, things that you can do, as opposed to, well, you have to know somebody, which doesn't help you unless you do know somebody, in which case you probably wouldn't have to ask that question. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who do you pick?
I'll pick on Sydney.
Sydney, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I have how much training is involved between like a regular police department and like a private agency.
Okay. Who would you ask that question?
They don't have to be famous, right?
They just have to be a dream person.
I don't really have a dream person.
Well, that was but Sydney, to be clear, that was the ask. That's the ask. Who is your all-time ultimate person that you would ask if you could ask anybody?
I don't know, because I really don't know anybody who works in that stuff for real, other than TV shows, which are not real.
This is what I want you to do before we come back. We got a couple more people to go. I want you to Google I want you to Google famous law enforcement people. And that'll give you a list, and then you can talk about somebody, and you can look at somebody, what they do, where they are, what position they might have. And if you tweak it by the type of job that you want in particular, and you talk about some of the different choices that you've been exploring through the process, you might even get a better sense of names. And I would be surprised if we know who those are, but I would like you to be able to identify what type of person or who or where they might be. And this is the other one you might do. Take some of the places that you want to go, right? So if you add Northern Virginia or something to where you want to go, outside of Maryland probably won't be helpful, but if you name a particular place, that'll probably get you a list of people. We'll come back to you. Who do you pick in the meantime?
Did Caroline go?
Nope. Hi, Caroline.
Hi. My question is, where can I get more information about what it takes to become a lawyer? And I was gonna ask like my dad about that because he's like a big time lawyer, and so I thought that it'd be like good to ask him about that.
Caroline, I'm curious because I've seen that. What's big time lawyer? And I'll tell you why I'm asking. This is the second time I've heard it from you. The first time is in your experience on one of your Odyssey plans. The direct quote was, "Be a big time lawyer." So I'm interested into what that is. I appreciate the visual. What's a big time lawyer?
Well, he was like a patent lawyer, and he like was like the president of his firm or whatever in New York. And so he would like travel around to like different places in the country, and then like he sued like big companies like Apple and stuff.
All right, so he's a partner in a firm, and he sues really big companies we heard of. I would call that a big time lawyer. Okay, I'm with you. Who's bigger than, my sense is that shouldn't be a tough meeting for you to get. Who else is a big time lawyer that does that you would want to get in touch with?
I mean, I don't really know. I haven't really done too much research on that. I'll have to like research that.
You know what I'd be interested in? While Sydney's looking up hers, I want you to Google do you want to be in patent law? Or do you want to do something else?
Either that or like a corporate lawyer.
Okay. So I want you to Google big time corporate lawyer and see what comes up.
Okay.
All right. On Ali, I think you're the only one left. What's your question? Who's your person?
So my question is, should I get my CPA license and then apply for law school, or take time off? And then my person would be Dr. JP Kroll.
Okay. Who's bigger than JP? Because I can assure you that of all the people that have been mentioned, JP is the one person who wants to talk to you more than anybody else.
Yeah.
That's what makes him great. So who else would be out there that's just like an awesome?
Probably ask Zulu Ali.
Why?
Well, he's like a minority lawyer, and he's pretty big in that, and like immigration and stuff. So I'd probably ask him.
Love it. Love it. Email him.
Okay.
Sydney, what'd you find?
No one.
No one?
No.
Well, what did you find?
TV show people.
All right. I'm curious, who on TV is like the biggest time investigator in Northern Virginia or wherever you put it?
I was just doing it in general to see what will pop up, but all I got was like people who like been passed in like the 1800s and stuff like that. Like they even popped up Sherlock Holmes.
He was a quite renowned investigator, so your Google is not altogether off. Okay, but I mean, even going through that process, it's like, hey, I'd like to interview Sherlock Holmes. I mean, if we continue to do this, like I might ask a question. It's like, okay, I would like you to find people that have passed away in law enforcement that you would like to, or TV characters that you would like to interview, right? And so it's like, oh, there's like Perry Mason, or for the CSI, the forensics people. When you go to see Dr. Rivers and he spins around in his chair and he's got his hutch behind him with his computer and everything. If you look right over the top of his head, there's a picture about this big. It's faded. It's almost black and white. And if you watch old TV, you might say, hey, that's the guy from The Odd Couple. It's Jack Klugman, who 20 years before CSI was Quincy, who was the medical examiner and investigative coroner. He was the first CSI guy. Dr. Rivers has never seen CSI, but he watched Quincy, right? And so on TV, that's who you would get. So when you go and see him, look for that. It's right above him, right there. Okay. Caroline, what'd you get for big time lawyer?
I'm still looking. I haven't really found that much. I mean,
Right.
like people like Bill Clinton came up, but I
He's a
mean,
big time lawyer.
yeah.
He's a
Okay.
big time lawyer. And this might be your problem, or if you get really good, it might be your dad's problem.
Hmm.
He was not the biggest time lawyer in his immediate family. Right. His wife was a much more accomplished lawyer than he was, even though he was the attorney general of Arkansas before he was the governor there.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Keep looking on that. We're going to go to our next piece. Okay. So one of the techniques in prototyping that we mention and comes up all the time, and to be quite honest, it was one of the reasons that I was most excited the day that I walked into our classroom in January and realized that it was a theater. And if we weren't in COVID, our experience there would be much different, even today probably, is this idea of role playing, right? And you all kind of have a sense of what that is. When I've taught this course in the past, for the other folks, we meet in Lang Lounge, which is also a makerspace, and I have a bag of costumes and hats and stuff that you can put on. So you can actually start to role play some of these ideas. And the idea is to be able to test an idea or experience by playing it out in kind of a simulated circumstance, right? And by doing that, like with the other role playing that we've done, including like drawing or these interviews, you have to kind of consolidate and put your thoughts together so that you can make specific choices for this to work. And you start to recognize where the pain points are or where there might be a challenge in your process or your idea. And so that's what we're going to embark on today in the first two workshops. Is what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to give you about 30 seconds, a minute to get your stuff together while I'm putting together the breakout rooms. And I'm going to ask you to prepare the draft of your life design intro. As always, before you start, I would like you to ask particular feedback that is not, tell me what you think. I'm not sure about. Did I make a connection? What else would you include? And I'm going to ask you to do it as, you know, as closely as you can to what will be a real sitting across the camera interview with somebody that you're going to connect with on Loyola Connect, right? But I'd like it to be short and I'd like it to be coherent. So the feedback, so those of you that are watching, you know, put the clock on it. Once it starts getting longer than 35 or 40 seconds, it's too long. You're going to start losing the attention of the person and it's probably not going to be interesting. So time is a constraint that I'm going to be pretty adamant about here. Have they clearly restated their values and intentions? At this point, I think that should almost come second nature to you, even without reading it. And the other thing that you remember that was at the end of that worksheet that I gave you, I'm going to ask you to transition to that first question, which means you have to have one and that you are comfortable enough in, hey, I'd like to start today, or the first thing I'd like to do, I say, so that's about me, but I'd really be interested in hearing more about whatever it is that you're going to ask them about them. Remembering too, not only is that a transition to getting what you would like to get from the interview, but it's also another place where we are clearly signaling and demonstrating that this is about you asking them questions and not about, you know, the normal job interview where they would be asking you questions. Okay. So folks clear? what we want to do. Now, we've got an odd number. I'm going to ask, is there anybody that would be willing to read their draft to the group? Oh, no, never mind. I count for some things, but not for this. So we've got an even number. So I'm going to put you into 5 groups, and you can get your stuff together while I am doing that. Okay. Before I turn you loose, does anybody have any questions? Pretty clear what you're going to do? All right. Don't be distracted if I pop in, because I have nothing else to do. So I will pop in and see how they're going. So somebody goes, you get feedback. Somebody goes, you get feedback. So you're looking at time. Those of you that are the watcher, time. Are the values clear? Right? And did they do a good transition to that first question? Okay, give you a few minutes to go after it. Okay, how'd it go? Those of you I didn't stop in to see. Did you have a story that you were able to, or did you have an introduction you were able to tell, have a question that you were able to ask? Just to reiterate on a point, and the groups that I mentioned this to, I apologize if this is a bit repetitive. So a couple things. Number one, think about a conversation that you would have with anybody that you just met. Like you can meet them at a party, you can meet them at a family gathering, or think about a time that you've been interviewed, maybe for college or for a position or a job. When that interview starts, there's kind of a customary kind of back and forth where there's an introduction of who everybody is. And the first question that you get is usually one about you or introductory of some kind. You're not jumping right into the meat of whatever it is that you're talking about, right? Even if you're asking up for a job, the first question is, well, tell us about yourself and how did you come here? Or tell us about yourself and why are you interested in working for General Electric? Right, that's kind of an opening question, an introductory question. It's not jumping right into the meat. It's like, well, Bill, it's really good to meet you. I'd like to know more about your experience depreciating capital assets in warehouses. I mean, that's pretty abrupt, right? Even if I knew how to do that. So the first question that you ask doesn't necessarily have to be one of your 5, right? Which is really, we're spending a bunch of time getting into really meaty, substantial questions. There's also a list of questions that I've referred to that you have been through that are on this handout that we got during the Messina enrichment, right? That talked about how you would set up your meeting and how you would address the meeting. And there is a number of questions that are here that you could ask. If you go back to the slides from 2 lectures ago, I put up a schematic of this and I added a couple more questions that I think are very valuable as well in red. But these are, like the one that I used in the example, these are kind of allow the person that you're talking to kind of a chance to introduce themselves and gives them some space in the conversation to be able to talk, space that they are going to hopefully continue to fill by telling them about themselves, their pathway, their experiences, their opinions, and their counsel and mentorship. These are some nice questions to be able to kick that off. It doesn't necessarily have to be one of your 5. So for me, I'm glad that we did this because I could kind of see that up front. And so we're kind of prototyping how this is going to work. And they don't necessarily have to be exactly these, but these are a nice template as introductory kind of things, right? And even some of them, like what trends are going to shape the future of your work, that one too might be a little bit too in depth, right? The top 2 or the top 3, those are pretty general interesting questions. Does that make sense? That distinction? I mean, and when you think about it, that's how conversations work, right? If you were to meet somebody and they jumped right into that, you go, "Ooh, she's pretty intense," right? There's like you're violating some social norms here. Okay. All right. The next piece that I want to get at today, and I want to go through, and I want to have an opportunity to think about your questions. All right, so the next, and again, just to iterate something here, this is from last week. So this is the public story and intention worksheet, right? You put this out. I filled it out kind of in mock. I think if you look at the worksheet, these answers are still in light gray that are there just as an example of how to do it. I colored them to kind of put the things together at the end. But if you go ahead and answer these questions, the idea is that you can get this piece at the end that can serve as your introductory piece of your design life conversation. Okay. The second part, I'd like you to identify your top 5 questions. And what I might ask you to do here too, just to piggyback on what we just went through, I'd like you to come up with a question that's kind of an introductory softball question as well. And I would like you to ask those questions to your partner in your room. And then I would like your partner or partners, depending on how we break this up, to go ahead and answer them. Okay. So I'd like you both to reflect. Did you get 5 different types of answers to those questions? Did you get answers that would lead to opening doors, inspiration, or action? So a little bit different here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to restructure the groups, and I have to stop sharing to, oh, no, I don't. Is I'm going to restructure the groups so that it will actually lend itself to giving answers a little bit better. So I'm going to create 2 3s and a 4. So when the question is asked, the other people can kind of take turns answering it and see what kind of answers you get. And there'll be kind of a group feedback now. So you're kind of clear what you'll do. One person will ask their questions. People will give some answers, give some answers. When you're done with your 5, come. I want you to ask the question, not, well, the first one I have here is something about what I want to get with my major. Like, no, ask the question like you would ask it. It forces you to have a concise, clear question. That's the point of this. Okay. All right, let's take about 12 minutes, about 3 or 4 minutes a person. Okay, hopefully that was helpful for everybody. For those of you that had a bunch of questions and you felt like they were ready to go, hopefully you got some feedback. One of the things I told a couple of the groups, keeping in mind who you're asking, right? The one thing that came up, a lot of people are asking about specific classes. And again, if you're asking a professor or somebody at Loyola about a specific class or course, they would tell you SA 226, BA 210. If you're asking somebody outside, it might be what types of courses would better prepare me? And then they can tell you something like philosophy or theology or math, or try to give you some general ideas. So really what you're doing is you want to craft your questions to get what you want. And part of that is putting the person you're asking the question in a position to succeed, right, with that. So just that small little thing, types of courses, which class will get you a much different answer from different people. Just as we're leaving for the break, I just want to be clear on what we're doing here for the next 10 days or so. So I'd like you to record your life design introduction. Remember, that's based on the template and the pattern that is provided in the life design introduction and intention worksheet. That's due Saturday night at midnight. Just record it. It should be about 35 or 40 seconds. Shouldn't be a lot longer than that. Second, I want you to fill out the prototype planning worksheet, which is, again, it starts with the top 5 questions that you want to ask from your Odyssey plan, and then who you would ask those questions to get the answers. And then there's the chart at the bottom where you fill in the particular people. please, I'm begging you, get that sheet filled out and start scheduling your interviews as soon as possible. Send out those introductory emails. If you wait to when you get back, you're going to realize that people can't meet with you tomorrow, right? So it's going to be another several days before you meet with them, which means it's going to be another day or two before you get your stuff together. And we need to have this wrapped up by the 17th of April. It sounds like a long time away, but after break, it's only like 8 or 9 days away, right? So I'd like you to have 3 or 4 interviews underway by April 10th. That's going to be our next assignment check-in. And all this done by the 17th. So this is the template for your introduction. This is the template. This is the first part. This is part 1 of the Designing Your Life Planning, the prototype planning worksheet. This is part 2. Couple things here. Number 1, contact information. So when you have particular people that you have researched, you know where to get a hold of them. So I want contact information. And then the next piece that we're going to add is, when are you going to meet with them? This is just a way to keep track of all of this as you're going in. So, hey, thanks for coming in today. Everybody have a great break. It's a while before we see each other. Be or get healthy. If you need anything over the break, I'll still be on email, even though I won't be in class. So have a great holiday, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just had a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So for the meeting dates, how are we supposed to know exactly when we're going to meet with them?
Just start filling those in. I'm not going to require that. All that's required, if you look at the criteria, all that's required is name and contact information. I've provided this chart for you, almost like a daily planner. Like once you start getting them, it just gives you a place to keep track. And then if they give you another name, you can put it in there. If you have another way to do it, that's great. But I just provided a way for you to have that.
Okay, and then I have one more question.
Yes,
So
please.
on Loyola Connect, it says like you can like message the person, but it doesn't give their actual contact information. Even when you click on it, it asks you like why you want to contact them. It doesn't like give you.
So 2 ways to go on that. Number 1, if you say contact your Loyola Connect, I'll know you did the research and know that's how you do it. But if you contact them, and what they're going to do is they're going to respond.
Mhm.
At which point you will set up a time on email or Zoom to be able to do it.
Okay, yeah. So when I did it,
So
I
that's
just wrote Loyola Connect, but I just didn't know if you
Yep.
wanted. their
No, you
email.
got it.
Okay.
And again, Addie, if you give me somebody that doesn't have your last name
Mhm.
and they're an alumnus or you know who they are, and it's from Loyola Connect and you have that on there, at the bare minimum, I know that you've looked people up that have a similar interest in you. And that's really what I want you to be doing at this point.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
not waiting until the 15th when you go, oh my God, he wasn't kidding. This really is worth 15 points. And then you try to end this too late.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I already did it. But is it 6 people like we were supposed to do for homework, or?
Yes, I just want you to have at least 5 or 6. And then also,
I've got 'em, so.
3 of them, a couple of them can be related to you, but I'd like 3 of them to be outside and 1 from Loyola Connect.
Okay, yeah, I think I
At
have.
least you can have more, but
Yeah, I have 3 from Loyola Connect, and 3 of them are professors at Loyola, and 1 of them is a
that's
senior.
fine. That's great. Oh, I love that you're doing students, and you look happier and healthier and more awake today. So I hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, I am. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. It's good to be home.
Hmm.
All right. Have a good break, Addie. Thanks.
Thank you. You too.